Hey guys, what's up? It is week 198, and first I want to start this out with a correction. I made kind of a, like I was just last week, I was just talking about having too many movies and I'm missing out on details and stuff and kind of screwing up, and that's exactly what I did. For the Plague Town review, I mentioned that the guy who directed the documentary was Howard Berger. I confused this Howard Berger with the guy from K&B, formerly K&B Effects. It actually is not. It's another guy who works in the industry named Howard S. Berger. So sorry for the confusion. It's actually not the same Howard Berger. I went ahead and cut that little 7-second clip where I mentioned that out of the last video. It's just assumed because the industry. I don't know what I was thinking. I just saw the name. I didn't think to dig deeper into it. I apologize for that. Also, keep a lookout for the 22 shots of moods and horror commentary we did for the faculty. It was a Patreon thing. It was pretty fun. Me, JP, and Jeremy did it. And then also the Forgotten Gialli box set. We're continuing into box 2. Me and Duncan McLeish over on the podcast Under the Stairs Network podcast. So look for that. But we're going to hop into the first review, and it's from Synapse Films. And this is one by Josh Becker, and this is called Running Time, starring everybody's favorite cult guy, Bruce Campbell. Okay. You guys know Josh Becker because he did the 1985 movie Thou Shalt Not Kill. Except, which is a really wild, crazy movie that stars Sam Raimi and a bunch of other familiar faces. From that kind of, and not even so familiar, but basically from that kind of Sam Raimi camp early. You'll see Scott Spiegel and people like that. So I've always enjoyed that movie, and I was always curious to see this one or more from Josh Becker. I know he's still working to this day, but okay. So this stars Bruce Campbell. Who else is in here? Geez, I think it's Jeremy something, but Jeremy Roberts, and this guy is in People Under the Stairs. You'll recognize him right away. He's a slew of other things. Art LaFleur is in here, and kind of the gimmick on this one is it's kind of like Hitchcock's Rope, where it's all done to look like one continuous shot. It's also shot in black and white. And honestly, I would have guessed this was a little earlier than '97, but I guess with there's a lot of crime films being made there, and this is definitely kind of in that caliber. But Bruce Campbell is he's an ex-con. He just gets released from prison, and the first day out, they're planning a heist to rob basically them right directly from the warden who let him out. But there's this really great moment in the very beginning when Art LaFleur and Bruce Campbell are going back and forth, and it's just some real good performance here. Art LaFleur is actually kind of an underrated character actor. He's in a slew of things like Zone Troopers. He's in the remake of The Blob. He's in William Friedkin's Rampage. The guy's in dozens of movies. You'd recognize him right away. But their interaction's great. But I was really impressed. About 10 minutes in, I was like, is this all in one shot? I knew about the film, but I kind of like to go in a little bit blind in a lot of these movies. I was kind of very excited, and it kept this energy throughout the first 2/3 of the movie. I do think that the energy slides down just a little bit, but the first 2/3 are actually pretty interesting, and I think they're well done. I think the whole movie's well done. It is 1997, so they do talk like criminals, so be warned. Basically, the job is of 4 people, and it is comedic. It's only in basically what's happening. It's not really a comedy, but there's comedic beats, especially interactions between Jeremy and Bruce Campbell. And of course, he's just kind of paired up with a bunch of idiots, except him and Buzz. But yeah, ends up that they try to kind of crack this safe, and everything you can possibly think of goes wrong. You can actually start to feel the frustration, and the way it's done, like I said, it's all in one take, so it never breaks the energy. There's literally moments of suspense where there's shootouts and there's special effects. It's not super elaborate special effects, but when they're all in one shot and you can't cut or screw up, it's pretty kind of intense and very impressive. Like I said, I imagine they're hiding cuts here and there, but I don't think there's that many cuts. Well, it doesn't seem to be that many cuts in the film, but there is a couple of interviews. One with older Q&A with Josh Becker and Bruce Campbell, and they're kind of enjoying screwing around with the crowd and having fun. And then there's a more modern interview with Bruce Campbell, which I've always enjoyed seeing those. The movie looks pretty good and sounds good. It is a low budget movie in black and white, so I did think it looked really solid. There's some lines in here that made me laugh out loud. just Bruce Campbell in general cracks me up. When he's leaving the prison is some of the best stuff. But there's also a commentary by Becker on here. I recommend checking this one out, especially if you like Thou Shall Not Kill. It's a lot different, but it does have. I feel like the whole Rami camp is kind of into the gags and seeing what they can get away with and do things innovative and stuff. And they definitely always do that. They always pull off things that you really don't think they should be able to pull off. But running time, good stuff. In real time. And there's just it goes into this funny gag with the watches. But check it out. I enjoyed it. There's also a love story that's squeezed in here too. But yeah, just like it's weird. They got all this stuff, and remember, it's supposed to be a one take, so it feels like it keeps the energy up. So check it out. Okay, before everyone. So if you're coming here just to bitch at me for the Serbian film review, that Serbian film is even in here, or I'm a pervert or a pedophile or whatever, just don't waste your fucking time. Give it a thumbs down, and just leave, okay? Because I'm going to talk about the new on Earth release of Serbian film. And I know this is a very controversial film, and nobody can even get past the controversy to talk about the movie itself. They either love it because it's so extreme, or they hate it because it's subject matter and it's so extreme and all that kind of stuff. So you got so many people just hating it or loving it just based on what it stands for, what they think it stands for. This movie, I remember when my first review I did, 10 years ago, I was just kind of like just talking about the kind of extremity of it, you know what I mean? Just because when it came out, it was kind of a shocking thing, to be honest. It was, I know people gonna get mad at this comparison, but it was essentially the generation's Cannibal Holocaust. For me, at least, just the stuff you heard about Cannibal Holocaust, the controversy and stuff. Now, maybe it wasn't as controversial, and I do think that Serbian film will go down in history as one of the most extreme films ever made. So I watch a lot of, I used to watch a lot of extreme. I still do here and there, the ones that look interesting. Extreme films, stuff. And I used to watch all those all the time, and during this time there were so many of them. I was even in a few of them, so it was something that a lot of the YouTubers kind of gravitated towards, just checking out these extreme films. And I will say this: most of the extreme films aren't that well made. They don't have a budget. They don't look slick. So when Serbian film came out, my jaw hit the ground when I heard that this movie was one of the craziest extreme movies ever, and it looked so polished. It was shot, I think it was shot on a digital, it was a new HD camera, so they kind of could make it look a little bit like film. But when I saw that probably it really surprised me that we had this polished movie. And when the subject matter started to happen, I was shocked that somebody paid for it. And I always will be shocked that this movie somebody paid for. And I believe the director actually produced it and financed a lot of this himself. So that explains some of it. But I'm going to say this right now. This is a well-made, well-acted film. The script unfolds very, very well. It's just good storytelling. I know the subject matter is disgusting. Some people will say it's just an exploitation movie. Other people get annoyed at the points that that the director explains this, and the producer and all these people explain that the movie is basically the real Serbian experience. It's, you're screwed from life. You're screwed for everything. But it's the whole movie at the end of it is very shocking, and it's so shocking that it creates these. I'm going to sound very sick for saying this, but it's almost like two kind of ways you look at it. You're appalled. You're so shocked at certain things, but then at the same time, it crosses that line to the point where it's so insane that you're like, I can't believe I'm watching this, and you start to kind of see some humor in the extremity. And it's not like I'm enjoying it. Maybe it's an uncomfortable laughter. I'm not 100% sure. But the plot of Serbian film is as follows. Basically, it's a struggling ex-porn star who was pretty much the best of the game at his time. He's married now with a kid, and he's having trouble providing for them. An old friend contacts him and asks if he wants to be part of this kind of underground film by this art director who looks like Andrei Arlovsky, and he's clearly kind of insane. He hesitates, but he ends up getting involved anyways because his family really needs the money. There's some other side characters involved, like I said, the porn actress who helps him get involved. His brother is he's a cop, so he kind of scopes out a little bit of the situation. And there's a bunch of goons that are kind of following around this director, and he's just kind of always being like philosophical and ridiculous and all this kind of stuff. But fairly quickly, Milos, who is the porn star, knows something's wrong because he gets on set, and he also learns a bit about this director, that he worked with he was a child psychiatrist. So all that kind of stuff ties into it, and he starts to kind of bring in this young girl, and he's painting a story, and they don't know anything, and they have like earpiece audio equipment in their ears to tell them what to do. But the movie crosses a lot of boundaries, and the subject matter, like I said, it's not very hard for people to figure out what kind of stuff is going to be in here. Now remember, it's all fake. No one was actually hurt during this. No one was actually exposed to child pornography or anything like that. And think about that kind of stuff when people come down so hard on this movie all the time when no one was actually hurt. I don't see that this movie is ever condoning or glorifying child pedophilia. It's not. You're disgusted throughout the entire movie, and even Milos, he is so disgusted by the whole situation, he goes into a rage. And I don't want to say this movie is not for everybody. This is an extreme film. This is a movie that it's right on the box. It's not made for you and stuff like that. And I'm against censorship in general. I know the only thing I really am bothered by is when people are being really hurt on film. Real death stuff I don't particularly care for either, that kind of stuff, or real animal killings. It's unpleasant as hell. But I don't like when people are really getting hurt, and like stuff like the bunny game always seem really kind of over the top for me in certain ways. But like I said, this movie is such a well-made film with great special effects, and the storytelling is excellent, and I actually was invested in all the characters, even the bad ones. I had to see what happened to them, and at the end of the film it almost goes into this ridiculous the reveal. So I'm going to spoil a little bit, but I'll talk about the special features here. There's two commentaries, one with the director and Stephen Biro from On Earth Films. That one was pretty interesting. And then there's also a Q&A that was about 30 minutes, 28 minutes with the American audience. And I like this one a lot because people started to ask questions and things, and what inspired the director. And that's when he kind of breaks down and says, he's not inspired by extreme films. He's not inspired by like a lot of the nasty extreme movies that were inspired by better movies than that, and then became great movies. Because here's a weird thing that I always say, like, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, Ed Wood never inspired to be who he was. He looked up to like Orson Welles and great huge directors. So it gets really weird when you have a lot of independent directors looking up to other independent directors, because then they are aspiring to be as good as Ed Wood, and then their movies end up really bad, because you know what I'm saying? Like Ed Wood's movies ended up having a charm to him because he aspired to be something else. This director, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with aspiring to be Last House on the Left, because I think those movies are masterpieces, of course, but people aspire to be some of the worst movies ever made because that's what inspired them, and that's always going to be like that, because it is what it is, and sometimes those movies aren't for me because they it's just a weird way to explain it. But this director was inspired, these filmmakers were inspired by 70s American films, and he names directors like of course some regulars like John Carpenter, but he mentions Walter Hill and Clint Eastwood and Cronenberg. So it's a mixture. He was inspired by that nihilistic 70s American cinema. So I can understand where this movie is more so an extreme film, but it also has these technical aspects that are a little bit above that kind of the typical extreme films, like I said. So and these are professionals in Serbia. The actual one of the actresses in here plays the voice of Ilsa in Frozen for Serbia. She sings the song in the Serbian version, which is my understanding, which is completely insane. So we're talking next level here. And this does kind of happen too in a movie that's foreign. Will be said, this is an extreme film in the United States. And a lot of films, you know what I mean? Like it's lumped in with a lot of the extreme stuff in here, while like York Buckaret's movies like Necromantic were always lumped in with the extreme cinema in America, where York Buckaret looks at himself as more of an art director, from my understanding, than an extreme director, although his subject matter has extremity in it. So it's a very strange kind of slippery slope. But also some other features, like I said, there's a commentary with the Movie Crypt guys, Adam Green and Joe Lynch. I did not get a chance to listen to that one, but I used to listen to their show, and I will definitely listen to it later down the line. And there's also an older Q&A in here where they kind of break down some things, which I thought was interesting. And there's a look at the Serbian film Expedition. Expedition, yeah, is that it? Yeah, sorry, for some reason that word's tongue-tying me right now. I had a brain fart. I've been working a lot this week, sorry. Exhibit, sorry. yeah, maybe it is an exposition. It's exhibit, whatever. Sorry, but yeah, where you get to see like the baby and everything like that. But so I'm gonna break it out some spoilers here. Like I said, the very end of this movie, it becomes a revenge film, and the revenge that the characters get is very cathartic. But at the end of the movie, there is really no catharsis. Everybody's ruined, and it becomes a bigger picture of what actually happened. That even the director and all the helpers were involved were pawns in this game. It's just that somebody up above, can just move whatever. It's just it's somebody with a lot of power and a lot of money controlling the strings, so pulling the strings. So you're nothing. But there's just lots, like I said, disturbing things. There's two big scenes in here at the very end, of course, and the newborn porn scene. Like I said, the special effects are great, and it gets into this point where it hits the over-the-topness, where there's a character with these sunglasses, just a monster character. The entire movie is kind of like the head forcer, the big guy, the enforcer, and his glasses are knocked off, and the character is on this sex drug, and he has a massive erection because he's a porn star, a massive erection, and it's just the kind of thing that you're like, wouldn't it be crazy if this happened? And this is the only movie where that stuff does happen. Like, what if this happened? When the glasses come off, you see he has one eye and there's a hole there. What would you expect? And it happens. It's like, it literally happens. Like, it's stuff that you really don't expect to happen. I mean, like, you think at certain points it will, but it's just the next level insanity in this thing. But I know people have seen this. I know people have talked about this to death. But I'm a fan. And I am not ashamed to say I'm a fan. I understand the subject matter is not for everybody, and if the subject matter was different, it was made this well, maybe it wouldn't have the infamy it does. It would still be a well-made movie. I'm not going to say anything different about that. But honestly, when we're coming to, compared to extreme movies that came out at the time, the I Spit on Your Grave remake, which I think has no real, I think it's kind of a crappy movie in comparison to something like this, or these movies, this one's groundbreaking, I think, in what it is. And I maybe groundbreaking is not the word. It fucks with you. And when you're looking at that, I can't think of a better place for this to be than the On Earth label. And I'm so glad they released it uncut, because what's the fucking point, if it's cut? As long as there's no real child pornography in it, or anything where somebody's actually getting hurt or messed up or anything like that. But literally, I just watched a forgotten Gialli movie called My Dear Killer, and there's like a 12-year-old girl walking around naked, and that's more, and it's so weird. And Sweet Movie and stuff like that. Sweet Movie, My Dear Killer, Don't Torture a Duckling has an iffy scene, but it's edited where they didn't see it. But stuff like My Dear Killer, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, that's probably worse than anything in Serbian film. Technically, on camera it is. But the soundtrack in here, it bangs. It's really super memorable. And there's a lot of stingers in this movie. Lots of crazy things that happen. And the death toll is high. Very high. I like the performances of him and his brother and his wife. And everybody's just very good in it. And the director, too. Great film. Great release, and I know there's a documentary coming out. There was a sneak peek look at that, which I'm very excited to check out. It looks like it's a lot went into it, a lot of interviews and everything like that. And there is, I think, an extended cut of this possibly coming out. I'm not 100% sure, but On Earth Films has been doing really good work lately. Last year they had some good ones like A Record of Sweet Murder and Purgatory Road. They recently put out Untold Story, which was a huge get on Earth Classics line, which I love. They put out Serbian film, and then they have stuff like 29 Needles coming out, which I hear is absolutely insane, and it's an extreme film that does interest me because it does look unique, and it actually, I'm scared to watch it, which doesn't typically happen, but I'm very scared to watch it because I like extreme films when they're well made. I don't like the extremity for extremity. I just don't know what I'm getting into with 29 Needles, but really recommend Serbian film. Great job over at On Earth Films, and I'm super happy that it's got a nice release finally for once. Not a cardboard sleeve and a plastic little CD case. Get the fuck out of here for that. You know what I mean? A real edition here. So yeah, Serbian film. Check it out if you want to. If not, then run away very far. Okay, I'm definitely earning my pervert card this week with all the stuff on here. You know what? I think this week they're probably going to put me on the FBI's most wanted list. So we have a Nakatsu erotic films collection here. We have Nun Story, Frustration in Black, aka also known as Sister Mary. That's why sometimes these movies, a lot of these foreign films have like 3 or 4 titles, and American films. So, okay, this one is, I'll go by Sister Mary. Maria, or is it Sister Mary? Let's go Nun Story, Frustration in Black. So this is an early 80s one. Japanese nunsploitation film. I'm mostly familiar with the Mexican and Spanish and Italian nunsploitation movies, so I never actually dived into the any of the Japanese ones. Although I know there's a couple big. School of the Holy Beast is a very popular one. So we have this poor girl who joins a monastery. The picture quality on this one is not great, even in comparison to a lot of the other Nakatsu erotic films collections. I imagine the elements weren't as well preserved or something like that. But she is basically in this monastery, and pretty soon she knows that there's some corrupt stuff going on. This one, it takes like 30 minutes before anything. Well, there's some like scandals happening, and we see an abortion and stuff. But the main plot is that she is raped due to one of the other nuns, and she's like an innocent, sweet girl. She's never had any of those kind of things. And the rape is really awful and weird, and you don't really even the way they show the characters, you don't really expect them to be rapists, and then they turn out to be rapists, and it's just a really ugly scene in a field. But it ends up that she ends up getting pregnant, and there's all sorts of horrible things happening. But the scandal kind of comes through, and we realize that the nuns and the priest in there are corrupt. And it's one of these movies where like you feel like almost every man in the movie is a pile of trash. And I have to point this out too, that there is a woman who is raped in a nun outfit twice. Is it, what would you call that, a habit? The habits thing goes on the head. I don't know what the entire outfit is called when a nun wears the robe and the habit, never that kind of stuff. But there's a woman who is a nun who is raped twice in one movie in like 20 minutes, and it's just one of these things where like you're like, so grody, so grody, so grody. And I couldn't help but think of Miss 45, which follows the story of a deaf mute woman who is raped in one day and decides to go crazy. And the end showdown is her dressed as a nun on a Halloween party with a gun with a 45. So I feel like maybe, I don't know if Abel Ferrer ever saw this movie, maybe not likely. I think this one actually might be after that, but there's definitely some comparisons. But yeah, this one I thought the ending actually ended up pretty decent, and had some good imagery, some seaside stuff. But this one is, I don't want to be negative. It's not mostly forgettable. It's just not the best of these ones I've seen so far. And really, the next one I'm going to talk about, shines it so much that I was like, this one's okay for what it is, Then after I watched the next one, I was like, I almost completely forgot about Nun Story, Frustration of Black, but I did enjoy it, and it was interesting to see a Japanese nunsploitation movie. Oh boy, man, this one is so insane. It is White Rose Campus. This is not even the full title. The full title is White Rose Campus, Then Everybody Got Raped. When I looked that up, I was like, oh, and then I started watching the movie. I was like, no shit, everybody gets raped. I could not believe this is the trashiest thing I've seen in a very long time. This might be the trashiest movie I've ever seen. But I started to have kind of like halfway through it, I was like, this has got to be a statement. This has really got to be a statement. It's almost got to be like a dark comedic statement that men are perverts. It has to be. Or it is the most irrehensible movie I've ever seen. It has to be. Okay, so basically what we have here is these schoolgirls are going on this trip. It's all planned out. There's like 40 girls on a school bus, a driver, and a teacher. She's explaining, we're going to get here, we're going to do this, everything's pre-planned. They stop at this bus station, or the fuel up, this rest stop or whatever, and there's two perverts kind of scoping out the place, and they're looking and they say, man, where's our third guy? We need a third guy. And they're super excitable and weird, and they're up to no good. And so yeah. And then we see this perverted guy who works there as a janitor. It's like stereotypical, yes, he's a janitor. He's running around and he's masturbating in the bathroom stall with tampons in his mouth from the garbage. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I immediately thought of Hanger by Ryan Nicholson. And then I immediately started thinking that a lot of the extreme movies from that time frame didn't have anything on the Japanese cinema that came out in the 70s. It really doesn't. And I feel like almost all the extreme movies that people went nuts for were just kind of rips of Japanese films. And the Japanese have always been more extreme than everyone when it comes to their movies. So, Oh man, I can't believe this movie. So these geniuses decide to recruit this perverted janitor. And of course, they get on the bus and they start to molest and rape everybody they come in contact with. There is a weird comedy beat where they kick all the so called ugly girls off the bus. They say, "You're too ugly," and throw them out of the bus. And this pickup truck with a couple guys pick them up. And the one girl tells a fabricated story on there. And it's just such a weird moment. But it has like these weird, like, I feel like, I don't want to say Keystone Cop moments with these guys chasing them, but there's literally like rape and then maybe like a, not necessarily a joke, but a weird tonal switch. And it's just like, I can't believe this movie exists. Like, I can't believe they're doing it like this. And then I started to realize that every guy that comes in contact is a pervert and a monster. And it does it 2 or 3 times like that. And there's a couple twists and turns. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's doing this stuff. And I don't want to spoil too much. I've already talked about it enough. But it is super grody and explicit. And there's lots of rape. And there's literally a part where everybody is told to bend over and lay in this. Man, this is trash. This is trashy as hell. And if I'm following it the way I think I'm following it, where it's a statement on all these guys are perverts, all men are perverts, and it's almost a parody of the perversion of men, then I can understand that it's kind of really good at what it's doing. If it's not aware of this stuff that it's doing, it is an abominable movie. But I can't say that I'm looking at it the first way, and I really did enjoy how crazy it was. And I'm not gonna lie, it was so insane I couldn't believe what they were doing, and it became entertaining because of it. Although, like I said, I'm reading at it in a certain way. But White Rose Campus and Then Everybody Got Raped is one of the most ridiculous titles. These Pinky films, they always have the most ridiculous titles. All Sato's films, Hisayasu Sato's movies have the like titles that you're just like, nobody's going to rent that unless they're a pervert. So I guess I'm a pervert because I'm watching these Nikatsu Erotic Films collection. I'll be watching a bunch more probably down the line. But this one is insane. White Rose Campus was one of the craziest things I've seen in years. But yeah, it's nuts. Nuts movie. And the ending, you're just like, I can't believe you're doing this. This was so sickening. Okay, the Patreon pick here is from Dan the Cameraman. He said, pick any Vinegar Syndrome movie that you wanted to check out. And I picked Killing Birds, a.k.a. Zombie 5. That's right. Okay, right? I've watched Dawn of the Dead, which is technically Zombie 1 a million times. One of my second, third favorite movie ever made. I've watched Zombie, Fulci Zombie, a million times. Top 5, 10 favorite horror movies ever made, somewhere around there. I've watched Zombie 3 a freaking million times. I love that goofy movie. And I've watched Zombie 4 a handful too. I love that movie. So why in the world have I watched all these zombie movies, sequels, unauthorized, authorized or not, a bunch of times, and I've never seen Zombie 5 Killing Birds? Okay, I guess I could tell you why. This is a late 80s Italian film, of course, partially directed by Joe D'Amato. It's basically his company, the Film Mirage one, which put out stuff like Frankenstein 2000 and Crawlers, aka Troll 3, aka Contamination 9. Some really cheapy kind of stuff that I kind of find enjoyable. But Joe D'Amato was kind of a very famous cinematographer in Italy, but he also directed a slew of stuff like Anthropophagus and Monster Hunter, aka Absurd. So Anthropophagus 2, whatever. He directed a slew of stuff, a bunch of stuff I've covered. I've always liked Joe D'Amato, made my top 50 favorite directors. So Killing Birds, this is a really strange film. Besides kind of a couple Italian regulars, the only big actor in here is Robert Vaughn. Which is crazy, you know. This is around the same time as Bud the Chud, I think, that he was in, and some other things. So, Robert Vaughn went from Academy Award winning or nominee to doing Bud the Chud and Killing Birds. Okay, the opening of this movie is like a quadruple murder or something like that, or triple murder, violent murder, and the murderer gets his eyes plucked out by these birds that they seem to have as captivity. We fast forward years down the line, and we have this weird college campus. Which is so bizarre. Like, this is the type of movie where I literally heard from 2 different characters in 10 minutes time just, there's a bear shit in the woods. So it's one of these ones where it's like, it's very Italian, but it's trying to be very American, and the result is just hilarity. I would There's so many of those kind of like that, like foreign films that are trying to be American so hard or appeal to an American audience that you just burst out laughing. Like, what was that one I watched a little bit ago? Don't Panic was like that. A lot of Joe Diamato's ones, I would say Absurd is like that for sure. Yeah, like where you have Italians, Americans, they're Americans in the film eating spaghetti while watching the Super Bowl. And you're like, this seems like a weird like understanding of American culture or the lack of American culture. I don't care, but what it is, whatever. But yeah, so killing birds is absolutely ridiculous. We have a group of college kids that are going to study the disappearance of a bird. We have a journalist go along with them, and we have like a nature guy to kind of guide them. So they all go, and pretty soon they're in this swampy area and they get lost. They end up finding this old abandoned house, which is the house where the murders took place. But they do first kind of consult or talk to Robert Vaughn, who is missing both of his eyes. So, oh no, he must have been the guy in the beginning. He must have been the killer. So, and there's some weird situation with them right away. So, pretty soon, they get in the house, and there's no real killing birds. Not really. And not really zombies either. They're more like black demons from like the Lenzi film or something like that. So they start to pick them off, and most of them die in absolutely ridiculous ways. The deaths are fairly gory though, although there is a guy who gets killed by generator. That's got to be a first. But his friend just watches him, where he's like, "Oh no!" and it's his hands in there. It's like, "What are you doing? Turn it off, kick it over, pull the guy out for." Just don't let him die. There's so many of that in a lot of these Italian movies, like these latter-day Italian movies, where they'll just be watching, like, their friend get massacred, and they'll just stand for like 10 minutes, like. But this one is super cheesy. I did enjoy myself. I'm not gonna lie. I do like a lot of the late '80s Italian films. This is weird that I never watched this one, but now I could check it off the list. The transfer looks amazing, like ridiculously amazing. It was very hilarious to see how good it sounded and looked and everything like that. Sam Deegan does a commentary on here where she breaks down the zombie films and their numerous authorized and unauthorized sequels. She talks about Joe D'Amato, all the players in the film. Great commentary, really enjoyed it. And I love her work. Her and Kat Ellinger's work together too. So always got to mention. When I mention one, I mention the other usually. But great commentary on here. There's also some interviews with some of the players in here. Anyways, great release by Vinegar Syndrome of a movie that I will watch again. But I can't give it like a wholehearted recommend. Like, this is a fantastic movie. It's a fantastically entertaining movie, but it's not a great film. But hey, you guys knew that already. Okay, guys, let's dive into Survival 5. And this one here is Chaos. That's right, Chaos by David DeFalco? Is that who directed it? Yeah. Boy, I'm going to take some heat on this one. I know this movie's not popular. I know it's not well liked. I saw it when it came out. Originally, this one was planned as a Last House on the Left remake. It ended up becoming a homage. David Hess was originally supposed to be in this, but some reason he wasn't, which is unfortunate. He was going to play the cop. Okay. So, Kevin Gage, Stage Stallone are kind of the bigger actors in here that I would recognize. You guys know Kevin Gage is kind of like a side character actor in a lot of big movies like Heat or Con Air. Very memorable character. Plays Wayne Crow in Heat, and he's in Con Air. He's got one of the lines in the very beginning where he's like, "Yeah, I'm a regular hound dog." And I just always remember that line. He's got a special glint in his eyes that shows you that he is insane or crazy. It reminds me of the glint in Day of the Dead that Steele gets when he is on the corral and he's like, and he does a fucking A-line. You can see like the glint in his eyes. And I feel like Kevin Gage has those same intense, crazy eyes. I've always been a fan of this guy too. He pops up in what's the other one? I think he's in Laid the Rest actually too. So the plot of Chaos is fairly simple. It's an updated version of Last House on the Left. Now, don't take this the wrong way. But Last House on the Left's original intent, right, was to basically show people that violence is ugly and disgusting. It is not a pop western movie where you fire 6 times and 8 guys fall down with no bullet holes in them. Violence is ugly. It should be shown ugly. It should be shown miserable, right? He wants to show the audience that violence isn't fun. That's kind of what Wes Craven's intent was, right? For Last House on the Left. And it was a redo of Virgin Springs anyways. So, when we come to 2005, we have Chaos, which has pretty much the same setup. We have 2 girls going to a rave in the woods. One from an interracial family, a kind of a richer interracial family, and one kind of more like parents don't pay much attention. So they go here. The parents are worried, so we're constantly cutting back between them. Um, and they meet Sage Stallone, who basically is Swan, who's playing the junior role. Um, and basically, he takes him back to his father, who is a wanted rapist and murderer, and his gang of thugs, which includes a Weasel type character and a Sadie type character. So I think so, yeah. So they have the whole group there. I'm a big fan of Last House on the Left, if you haven't noticed. And pretty soon, what happens is they struggle, they're humiliated, they're mutilated, raped, and murdered until they come back and face the family. There are some differences here. And I think that the opening, it opens up with like this like warning that this is disturbing and made to show that this stuff happens every day and you should be very careful, that kind of stuff, which is a very exploitative kind of ploy. But the whole campaign for Last House on the Left was very exploitative, but it worked very well, right? But it had a message in there too, I guess, to show the violence. So the stuff in here is really nasty. Really nasty. Some of the side acting, I'm not saying Kevin Gage is great in it. Stage Stallone's pretty solid. The girls are good for the most part, especially when they're being murdered and hurt and everything like that, and pain and fight back. They're really excellent in that kind of department. But it is so graphic and nasty. And like to do an updated version of Last House on the Left, you'd have to really, if you want to get that feeling where you're going to hurt the audience with the violence and show them that, no, this is gross, this is horrible stuff. You really kind of have to hit them with it, right? I don't know if you can really shock people in 2005 at the time or hit them over the head with this stuff. I feel like maybe that time was gone, or maybe you had to do something completely different. Maybe you couldn't use that story anymore to work, but they're damn well tried. And it's really nasty and it's dark. And the way it ends, it brings up these other things too, this really ugly side of human nature in there. And it ends differently. I know it's kind of a spoiler, but the way it ends will really upset people. And I think it's the movie's intent, just to upset you, to let you know that, the catharsis that you really thought at the end of Last House on the Left, like, yeah, they got their catharsis, sort of, but they're still ruined. It's worse than that here. They don't even get that, And I don't want to say anything else about it, but the special effects are really solid and gross, and I couldn't believe, like, rewatching it again. I seen this one a couple times when it came out. Rewatching it, I was like, holy shit! And I will admit, the first like scene with the whole them is kind of shaky, where like they beat up these kind of guys where they're acting like they're hitchhiking or something like that. I was like, man, this feels a little shaky in terms of like acting. But like I said, Kevin Gage is always fantastic, and he's just a monster. And I also found it hilarious that the only other movie from 2005 that uses the gay slur as much is Hostel, where in Chaos they're portraying absolute monsters, criminal, scum of the earth, pieces of shit, and in Hostel they're portraying college kids. So isn't that funny that these two movies from 2005 use the gay slur more than any other movie that I've seen from 2005? Very funny. I think that Eli Roth's dialogue for college kids was a little dated even in 2005, because I feel like high schoolers were talking like that in 2005, not college kids. By college, you're thinking, it's 1 year out, but still, you're going to college. Grow up. Stop being a dick. So it was a different time, like I said, but it's just weird to me, like the comparison. I just don't know what else to say about this without spoiling it, but I was really kind of still surprised at the brutality of it. And I think that it is more of an updated, true to form Last House on the Left than the 2009 movie. I think the 2009 remake fails at everything. I mean, it's a polished movie. It might have some good acting in it, but it literally it's not Last House on the Left, and it's not an updated version of that original story. Why would you update the story, and its intent was to hit the audience over the head with the violence and show them that it's not pretty, and pull all your punches in a remake? And I know Wes was involved with the remake, but Wes Craven, people when they're younger, they're more, I think, likely to make something that hits really hard. Maybe it's rough around the edges, but it hits like hard as a mule, right? And they get older. I think those edges, they start to soften out a little bit. And I don't want to say Wes Craven was soft or anything, but maybe he didn't want to make that stuff, and I don't blame him. Like if I was a filmmaker now and they're like, make a Hills Have Eyes or Last House on the Left, I don't think I could do it. And like it's some of these guys, they have that something to say and something to prove, and I think in Last House on the Left had it, and maybe Chaos didn't have it exactly but they tried a lot harder than the Last House on the Left remake, and it's cheaper, it's dirtier looking, which it should be. And I know I didn't want to get on this tirade about the Last House on the Left remake because it's not very good. I mean, it might be well made and everything. I just haven't seen it in a while. I just remember it kind of being meh. But I think that this one doesn't really pull its punches, and I think that's kind of what you need to have when you're making a movie like this. And I know I had some complaints about Becky too, and I know a lot of people enjoyed it, and they're like, "Well, Becky doesn't have to be that," and it doesn't have to be that. But if I want to watch my revenge movies with horrible characters, I want them to be horrible, and I want them to, you know what I mean? Like I need to see that like realism in there if that's what you're showing me. So I know people hate this movie. They can't stand it, but I like it. I'm going to recommend it. There's some nice features on here. An interview with the producer who played Junior in the original Last House on the Left, and he talks about the casting and some of his career and how David Hess had a falling out, not making it, and everything. But they did, part on good terms. It sounded like. And there's an interview with the actor who plays the Weasley type character. Anyways, chaos. And they don't have the Keystone Cop stuff. They just have racist cops. So yeah, if you're into the kind of extreme stuff, look into it. It is an interesting movie. It has an interesting story and all that kind of stuff too. I like it. And it's a weird movie from 2005. Okay, I'm going to be very brief with this one. It is Death Tunnel from 2005. And the only reason I watched this is because I was going to cover it on 22 Shots, but didn't have time. So, Death Tunnel. I really didn't. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't until somebody read the description when I was watching it, and I was like, okay, that's what's happening. Basically, like this guy, he's a rock star. He has like 5 women go through this abandoned like old facility where a bunch of people got sick and died in, and it has a haunted history to win his affection or some shit. Basically, some weird ghost or something's killing everybody. I don't know. Obviously, evil spirits from the stuff that happened before, and there's definitely a twist in what all the people are picked and why they're there. Yada yada. Some people have ancestors and bullshit like that. The first 5 minutes, I was like, oh, this is not going to be as bad as everybody says it is. This isn't bad at all. The setup's cool with the plague and people being wrongfully buried and experiments. I was like, this is going to be cool. And then it started, and the editing started cutting in, and the weird voiceover would be like, 6 dead, go, go, go. I'm like, what are you talking about, Willis? I have no idea what's happening here. The editing literally was so sporadic and sloppy and weird, and everything about it just made no sense. Everybody felt like they were supermodel, and they were just not very good at acting or maybe delivering their lines, but who could deliver these lines anyways? So I don't blame them. I mean, I don't think I could do any better, so I might as well shut up. But literally, there's just points in the movie where I did not know what was happening. I could not follow anything. It was just sporadic, terrible, not 2005 editing, just horrible movie. Just not make any sense to me. I couldn't follow it. It gave me a headache. And it's just not very good. And this is old man Parker, get off my lawn. Can anyone make ends meet of this movie? I don't know what the hell is happening. If they didn't tell me the characters were dead after they died, I wouldn't know they died. And there's this really hilarious scene where the characters like sprinting up a fire escape, and it's like cutting sporadically and moving and all this stuff. And then they jump on the roof real quick and they fall right through the roof, and I immediately just started laughing out loud. Absolutely ridiculous movie. Not good. Worst movie of 2005 right now for sure. So I don't plan on watching anything worse than this. And I only watched it because it was for 22 Shots and I didn't even review it on the show. Awful. So yeah, Death Tunnel. No thank you. Okay. We got a big chunk of here of 2005, and this is Kazuo Umezu Horror Theater six. I can't talk right now. 6 Dark Tales to Make You Cringe. So I guess I'll start and break these all down and start with the first one, which is House of Bugs. And this is directed by the guy who did Pulse and The Cure. So kind of a known name in here. This is a really weird story here. These are ranging anywhere from about 50 minutes to an hour and 6 being the longest. Most are about 47 to 52, I'd say, something along those lines. They were made for TV in 2005. They're shot on, I think, digital, maybe even video. They look very cheap. But, okay, so the first story, House of Bugs, is a weird marital story, but it's kind of cool. It's definitely a metamorphosis story, Kafka story. So we have two points of view of this husband and wife kind of telling the story where they both think they're cheating on each other, and the wife is accusing the husband of being abusive, and they both have these people that they're kind of relaying these stories to. One of which, with the husband, he had a kind of a one night stand with her years back, and the other guy is a cousin. But the other two do not know this, so they're both suspicious of them, and it becomes really wild and weird and just strange, and I don't necessarily know how to explain it. But they show these two points of views within like how they the husband and wife kind of understand the Metamorphosis book and everything like that. But there's some really awful CGI in this one that is hilariously bad. There is a couple practical moments in there too are okay. This one is kind of interesting, but I don't know how much I liked it. Not one of my favorites of the six, but were interesting enough, and I definitely need to read Metamorphosis because I keep seeing movies that are referencing it, and I know that I'm missing out on stuff. And I even watched the movie Kafka from '91, and it was a batshit crazy experience that I know I would like better if I was familiar with the character's work, the writer's work, way more. So yeah, this one I would say iffy on it. I don't love it. Okay, the next one is Diet. And this one's super strange as well. I really forgot to double check who the directors are because there's a lot of famous directors behind these. One of the directors, like I said, was Pulse and Cure. Another one did Meatball Machine from this year. And geez, there's like all of them are kind of famous directors. I want to say the guy who did Meatball Machine did The Present, but I'm not 100%. He might have done Snake Girl. So this next one is Diet. Um, this is a strange one. Okay, so we have this girl who basically starts to suffer from bulimia and anorexia. You think that she's seeing herself as very heavy and she likes this boy, but he's not interested in her. And we have this really heartbreaking moment in the very beginning where he kind of like tells her he's not. And pretty soon enough, we have this huge reveal in the middle of the movie. But there's this points in here. There's a couple like reveals in here, and the ending is it's worth watching for the ending. I really enjoyed that. But there's this really kind of weird moment to me where I'm like, it's so strange when you have a character who's suffering from bulimia or anorexia, eating disorder, and they see themselves very overweight. So like you have to put out a casting call for like somebody that looks like this person but they're overweight. So it's like I need a fat person. It's just like that's just so like sad. Like he's like, all right, come in. We're gonna cast you for being fat person. It's just like this sucks, man. But I know it's just such a strange thing for me. Like every time like sitcoms or TV shows would be like, well, here's we need fat disgusting person number 6. It's just weird like casting and stuff for that kind of stuff. That's the first thing that pops in my head when I watch this. But like I said, I can't talk about this one without completely spoiling everything. But it is a film about mental illness for sure, and like the reveals work really well. And the end has a nice just dessert, which I really liked, and I thought it was enjoyable. This one, it doesn't feel like a horror movie at all, and just like the first one doesn't either until like the 75% mark, and they're like, oh, these are horror movies, and horror turns pretty quick. The first two at least, in House of Bugs and Diet. But I would recommend checking this one out. I guess this one might be one of the weaker ones for people, but I did kind of enjoy it. So is Diet. I enjoyed all of them, but to varying extents. Okay, the next one is Snake Girl. And this one's super bizarre too. This feels like a weird. It's definitely making a mention on bullying and that kind of stuff, but it also feels almost like a Lawrence Talbot where a Wolfman story with snake people. So we have this young girl who's going to meet her cousin in an isolated village, and she's walking through the woods, and everybody that sees her from this village is really leery of her. She gets there, her aunt and uncle don't really want her there, but her friend tells her to stay, her cousin. And she starts to kind of have these weird nightmares. One of them is not nightmare, but weird things start to happen where it feels nightmarish. One of these is straight out of a nightmare, I will say, though, where she's sleeping in bed and there's a hole in the ceiling and there's like this weird blue eye looking in at her, like strange eye. It's just creepy as hell. Happens a couple times like that. But soon enough, we realize that she has her own issues of anger and frustration, and somehow it's become part of this snake world, and these people, the whole town ends up being possibly snake people, and it gets really weird. The effects are practical and digital. The digital effects are abomination to everything that is known. But I'm exaggerating. The practical are decent. Like I like the look of the snake woman or snake girl. But all in all, I think this one is decent, and it is a little strange to mix these two kind of almost like legend. Like I said, it feels like the Wolfman, but it also mixes in these like this like kind of like story about bullying and lessons and all that kind of stuff. I think this one's decent. Okay, the next one here is called The Wish. And I should mention that this guy, Katsu Umezu, he's a manga writer, and a lot of his stories are, horror stories. They were adapted into this and some other things too. I think Baptism of Blood is one, but not all his stuff I think has been adapted. So this is kind of cool that this even exists in the first place. So we're gonna do The Wish. And this is, I think, when they start getting pretty good. This one is probably one of my favorite of the bunch. A very memorable thing in here is basically we have this young kid who's gifted intelligence. And he's kind of a loner at school. He lives on the opposite side of town, so he walks by himself. No one really talks to him. He doesn't have many friends. So one day somebody gives him a compliment on his woodwork, and he decides to take a different way home. And it feels a little bit magical to him, different. He feels like he's seen these streets somewhat, but they're not the same streets that he's used to, and all that kind of stuff. And he ends up finding this wooden, rounded item, and he takes it home and he starts to carve it into a friend. There's also this kind of wish fulfillment thing his father tells him about, wishing on stars and all that kind of stuff. So he ends up making a friend, and it's really crude and weird looking. It has these brackets on it to move its legs, wooden stuff, and it has these big eyes and these pin mouth. It's very creepy and unsettling, but this becomes his only friend. And he's very loyal to his friend. He gets mad when his mom makes fun of it, but his parents, worrying about him, send him to a more public school where he immediately finds a girl that he's interested in, and they become friends. But that wish he made and that doll he made, they're not having any of it. I'll leave it at that. But there's some really creepy moments, and there's a good standoff at the very end. I think this one works really well. It's really creepy. And you saw some of the comic pieces of it in the opening, like you see the doll on the window with the rain. This one works really well, and I like the weird kind of almost magical storyline where he says he takes the different road home, and he just saw something they normally wouldn't see, and it feels almost like a different street, and the world's changed since he went down that street. Anyways, this one's really solid, really good, and really creepy, and I thought that the way they moved the puppet and stuff worked really well. Good stuff. The next one here we have is The Present. And this one is wild, man. I think this is the same guy who did Meatball Machine. It would make the most sense, right? Okay, this is a weird take on Christmas. You usually don't think Japanese and Christmas, because I don't think that there's as many Christians in Japan as there is United States and some other places I'm more familiar with. But we have this young girl who she's kind of dating a young guy. They're six friends are going to this. It seems like they rented out this hotel, and basically she's planning on losing her virginity to him. Then we have kind of this flash with her at a young age where her parents are telling her about Santa Claus, and they tell her who he is, and she has to be good or he's gonna, he won't give you presents, but he'll do something way worse. So before long, she sees the clerk as Santa Claus, and nobody else does, and it gets very strange. And pretty soon enough, Santa Claus comes in with a vengeance, and he starts hacking and slashing everybody up. This one's really gory. There's limbs chopped off. There's some nasty stuff going on. It's very bloody. And then we start to realize that the spirit of Christmas is possibly not the same to everybody else, and it's what they were told to look out for, or who would punish them is what the entity looks like. And I thought that was super interesting, and how they went into that, and very different. But it starts to get really crazy at the end, and we start to have these possibly different realities, and I don't want to spoil anything, but it's nuts. It's gory. It's got a good Christmas look, even though it's a cheap-looking movie. There's lots of greens and reds, and I thought this had good Christmas atmosphere, and I was very surprised by it. And this one was much better than expected, and probably the best of the bunch, along with Wish. Those two are by far the best, but this one's really good, so check out The Present. And the last of the 6 films is Deathmake. And Deathmake, this is a weird one. This honestly kind of reminded me of something that Moreau would do. It kind of reminded me of that, or a cult, where it has all these kind of paranormal people meeting into this abandoned school or place. This place is supposedly very haunted. Anybody who's went in's never come out. So they have 5 or 6. This producer gets them all together. There's 5 or 6 psycho, kind of psychic kind of people that deal with ghosts. They all have major different personalities, and they all kind of are breaking down who they are and why they're there and all this kind of stuff. And of before long, something crazy happens. And it's not necessarily a ghost story, it's an even crazier story about different dimensions and insane shit like that. And this kind of bug creature comes out, this mantis-like thing. Sometimes practical, looks pretty solid, sometimes digital. The digital effects in here are not fantastic, but they start to get picked off here and there. It's in a creepy location. I think this one works decently, enjoyed it. And it does have that kind of tackle, like a team of psychic people go to a place. You know, it's been done a million times, but it's not exactly the ghost that they're looking for or what's not. But thought they did some cool stuff with the white sheet they have hanging up and shadows and stuff. Overall, I was happy I watched these. The first couple, I was like, maybe I should watch all these. And then by the time I was done, I was like, yeah, I liked more of them, a lot more. Like, I liked two of them quite a bit. I thought two of them were okay, and you know, I feel like two of them are great and four of them are okay. I'll be more in that kind of that way. But anyways, yeah, I'll post probably some clips that I can find, trailers maybe even the theme music to hear, because right after like you hear the theme music 5 or 6 times, it definitely gets stuck in your head and you're like humming along with it. I enjoyed it, to be honest. But anyways, that is Kazuo Umezu's Horror Theater. There is 3 releases you can get separately, or you can get the 3-disc set. I would just try to go for the 3-disc set, makes it easier, all in one place. Nice. What's up, guys? We're here for Blindspot, and this was my pick. And this was Paul Verhoeven movie from 83, 84, The Fourth Man. Yeah, so I definitely had heard about this movie for years. It was a thriller I always wanted to check out. And a lot of his movies he shot in his home country before the States, I had not seen any of them. I'd never seen Flesh and Blood, Soldier of Orange, Turkish Delight. Well, there's another big one I can't think of. Jeez, whatever. Is it Spetters? Did he do Spetters? I can't remember. But regardless, this was one that caught my attention the most. It's kind of like a thriller. Jeez, it's really weird, strange film. Categorically, thriller is the #1 category, but I would say definitely horror and just strange. I don't want to say film noir necessarily, but there's definitely a femme fatale for sure.
A femme fatale, it has like that kind of Polanski, Hitchcock thing going on.
Yeah, mental illness, psychological thriller type deal. Before I forget, next week is It Came From Outer Space, which is your pick.
Yes.
Which is one of the Rocky Horror Picture Show songs, right?
Yes.
But okay, so this follows the story of Goomba. Goomba.
He's stuck.
He's stuck. Our cat's stuck on the chair that he
Right.
shouldn't be scratching anyways. But next week, he completely threw me off. Sorry about that, guys. You know, pets will be pets.
Right.
But yeah, so it starts off with this writer, and right in the beginning, he has this weird obsession. He's not all there right off the bat. He spots this young male that I think he thinks might be a hustler possibly, or regardless, he doesn't care. He's very intrigued, and they're in this magazine shop, and he's looking at pornography, and he tries to approach him. Basically tries to follow him on the train, loses sight of him, and ends up kind of getting on the train and has a strange hallucination, which is very, very much full of premonitions that happen later in the film, where you wonder, has he been to these places before? And then you kind of start seeing as the film unfolds that a lot of these things are coming true, and it gets really bizarre, and it starts to screw with your head and everything like that. Is there supernatural aspects? Is there mental deficiency? All sorts of weird things. But the imagery on that train was amazing when the way the camera works, where he's staring at this picture and you literally go inside the picture. He does, and then he walks around inside the fucking picture, goes in a building, and there's the eyeball and the tomato juice thing. It was just really well done, and I was very impressed with it. It's so different from Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop or Total Recall or Starship Troopers or freaking Showgirls. So different.
Right, yeah. I don't see that style carried over, I feel, into some of the other stuff I have seen of his.
Well, the thing about his style is, like, he never, ever tippy-toes around things to me.
Right.
Like, he's not subtle. He's not subtle at all to me. Like, with RoboCop and Starship Troopers, the satirical shit's right in your face. This one, it's like the psychological aspects, the premonitions, and I guess what he did was he put tons of symbolism in here and shit on purpose. I saw this on Letterboxd, just so the critics would be like connecting all the symbolism, but it was just all mostly bullshit, and he just did it so he could get critical acclaim and played the critics like that. Because really, it's just a story about a guy who has obsession and mental illness, or there could be something else going on. The title, The Fourth Man. Basically, he ends up meeting this woman who he's interested in, and it turns out that she has a boyfriend, and that boyfriend is the guy on the train who he is obsessing about. So he sticks around in this weird, creepy love triangle, and he thinks he might be playing psychological tricks on both of them, but he actually might be the fly.
Right, he might be the one that's, might be killed. He does find out, I don't know about spoiling.
Well, I think that we can talk about like some of this bit. We typically don't spoil the newer ones, but these ones in Blindspot, they're Blindspot for a reason because they're fairly popular movies.
Like, so like, he comes to find out that she's kind of like a Black Widow type where, she's like married 3 times, all 3 husbands have been killed. So that's where the title of the Fourth Man comes from.
Times before
and like he debates, is he going to be the 4th person, or is it going to be the male that he's in love with?
I love when he watches her like private film reels that she must have left out for him to find on purpose.
Yeah.
And the one guy, the lion stuff, I'm like, because there's that real awful Traces of Death, which I think I turned off. Like if you thought Faces of Death was too much, Traces of Death is really bad, where it's just like this voiceover and this guy's feet like gets out and films these lions and he gets mauled by them. I immediately had flashbacks to that, where this guy gets killed on the safari in this. Like they don't even show you the deaths, but you just fill in the blanks where you know exactly what happened. But no, the actress who plays the femme fatale is in Eve of Destruction, which is one from '91 about this kind of robot that's carrying a bomb in them, which is a really fun, cool movie. It's one of the 3 or 4 killer robot movies from 1991. Yeah, I really like this. I thought the acting was tremendous. I thought it looked great. I thought that it was, like I said, there's not really subtlety, but there's imagery and I guess symbolism is just kind of fun. But there's lots of kind of stuff that would be bothersome to some people, like the religious iconography. People are like, gay Jesus stuff. I don't like it.
And there's a lot of like gay subtext in here. No, it's gay actual text. I mean, he wants to, be with
his sexuality is a very strange character because he's bisexual. Like, and the scene where him and the girl have sex, the woman have sex, and he says you have like a slender boy's body, and that whole scene. Like, do you ever see movies like how sex is filmed really weird in the editing, and it's just like all this like sappy, like soft focus lighting shit? This felt like real sex. Like it felt more real, and it wasn't like hardcore or anything, but it felt real. Like, you know what I mean? Is there any kind of scenes where they like somehow managed to make him look more realistic and not over the top? But I felt like it was actually a really well done sex scene with him and the woman there.
I think it was too, actually. Maybe not as well as Forbidden Planet. No.
Stop it. Yeah, the saxophone cut too. Those were like raunchy sex scenes though.
Right.
I mean, this is explicit. It's not like it's not explicit. But what's really weird about this movie is he spends this whole time trying to track down this man and seduce him, and then when he gets his chance, his own other obsession or his fear completely fucks it up, and you're just like, all that for nothing, really.
Right.
And like I said, it feels very haunting. Like if you would watch like The Psychic by Fulci or any of these Don't Look Now movies with premonitions, this movie has premonitions. And when I think horror, I do think premonitions, unless we're talking about Spider-Man or some shit. You know what I mean?
Right. I always really liked the I guess character arc or plot element of like the fake psychic becomes a real psychic and they don't know how to express or interpret.
That's basically Ghost too, where the fake, the fake, the charlatan basically becomes the real thing.
Yeah.
Or that movie, The Cleansing Hour, which came out last year, a couple years ago, about the exorcist on the internet has to be a real exorcist for once, but he already lost his faith. But so there's that going on, and I had another interesting point that I was thinking about too. Oh, like I said, the premonitions. I was hitting that. The Medium from 1985 kind of reminds me of that kind of stuff too. That one's an interesting Polish movie that doesn't get a lot of love. I know from '85. But no, I think this is a great movie. I like the look too.
Yeah, it looks really good. I like the
dark
setting
look to it. A great setting. A character that is not likable but very interesting.
The main character.
Yeah, I like watching them. I like watching all 3 of them.
Well, it's I think it's kind of cool to see a gay character presented in such a way where it's like.
I'm so sick
He's
of
not like feminine or like
masculine. He's neither.
Right. He's just
and he's very witty too. I love when he's on stage and they're like talking and he's doing the writing stuff. It does get very old to watch like stereotypical gay or African American characters. It's just like, come on, we still doing this shit. Like
Right.
everybody's unique and different. I know sometimes the stereotypes cross over and whatever, but still, I am so sick of seeing like the overly feminine or like the biker gay guy or something like that. Or this character is probably, I guess it would be a third stereotype, maybe the artistic gay type.
I guess.
But he's a weird character and he's not typically like any other character. But there is so many of these psychological thrillers where I am a sucker for it because you could do a lot of different things and all the characters are always they're like the same, but they just do different like stuff in their psyche and stuff. I don't know. So the question is, there's that great scene where they hug and you know he's manipulating her because he wants to get her boyfriend. And they like show her face hugging him and she obviously is hiding something as well.
Right.
Which I loved. Now was that in his head? Was that a trick for the audience? Do you think she's bad?
I think she is. Like they don't really come clean with it, but like her last scene in the movie is walking off
With some other guy.
And she's like, "Oh, is it you paraglide or what does he do? I can't remember."
Something dangerous that he should be doing.
Exactly.
But what's funny is she definitely was getting a lot of money from the situation. She has the 3 urns in the crypt. But how would you feel if they just put your body next to the other husband?
Right, that's
I'm like,
kind of...
put me next to my parents or something. I don't want to be there.
Right.
But what's really weird is, do you think she planned on marrying the young guy or him and killing one of them?
You know, she probably couldn't get away with... You know, because she does seem to be going for a certain type. And it's usually a very rich person and somebody that is into some sort of weird extreme or...
So she was just screwing them for fun? Or do you think she was kind of gold digging to see if the writer had any money?
She knows the writer doesn't have any money. Because he couldn't even, like, get the train there.
Yeah, she was paying. Which is very strange, though, because...
Yeah,
why was she fooling around with him?
I mean, she liked him, though. It was love.
No, it was not love.
True love.
It was not. Because she was clearly manipulating him in a weird way. I don't know what was going on.
Right.
Like, see, they leave a lot of that kind of open-ended.
Right, and then the other guy, while he had money, I don't think he did anything necessarily that was...
Well, he didn't have that much money. He was doing a medial job.
Yeah.
He was a construction worker or something like that. He didn't have that much money. But life insurance policies, but they weren't married. You see what I mean?
Right.
And do you think he died before she could cash in on anything from him? So do you think that he screwed up her plans?
Maybe he did. Maybe. I mean, whether or not you look at it as... she is the killer or not, he did screw up her plan. I mean, even if she wasn't the killer, like...
Yeah.
The whole reason why the boyfriend was there was to cure his, like, 3-minute, and he's out thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that was the whole shtick, was like, oh, I love this man, he's amazing, but sex is terrible. And so... And then that's when the writer's like, oh, I'm a sex expert. I can probably cure him. You see my mystical psychic powers. And then, well, he gets to blow kill.
And I love that he had, like, read the information and he's playing it like he's guessing. That's just such a slimy thing to do. And it just makes me, like, cringe. I'm like, oh, man, that's so uncomfortable. But I thought it was a great movie. I would give it... do we read the reviews first?
Yeah, I think we do.
I'm going to do Creature Features, John Stanley, from my old ripped-up book. And where are we at? The Fourth Man, 1984, 3 out of 5. Paul Verhoeven, director of Total Recall, spins a weird allegorical tale about a homosexual writer who suffers hallucinations and undergoes horror when he meets a black widow whose husbands have all died mysteriously. A multi-layered Dutch film with subtitles. Subtitles is spelled wrong. No, it's right. This may offend some with its sexual and violent content, but art film lovers should find it fascinating. Jorgen Krab, or how do you say his name? Georgen Krab, Renee... Yeah, no. A.K.A. Blunt.
Okay, The Fourth Man, 3 out of 4 stars, 1979, 98 minutes.
Yeah, oh wow, 79. I don't think that's right.
This already dead shocker plays like a cross between the work of a Brian De Palma and Roman Polanski. A gay alcoholic writer, Crab, begins an affair with beautiful blonde hairdresser Sotenjik. I don't know, Swedish or Dutch. As the relationship progresses, Crab discovers two obsessions. The first, to sleep with what's-her-name's handsome young boyfriend, Hoffman. And the second, and more disturbing, to discover what really happened to Renee's three dead husbands. Admirably frank in its presentation, no Hollywood film would feature casual frontal male nudity or homosexual characters who aren't face stereotypes, which this has striking imagery and shockingly gory twist ending. Even with the poor dubbing, it's still well worth seeing. Originally 104 minutes.
Ooh.
We watched the subtitled version.
Yeah,
we watched it in actual Dutch.
Yeah. So he was dead on. We said all that stuff, and I didn't read that before. Did you?
I totally did.
Oh,
but
well,
I felt the way, so I was like, I wanted to say it out loud.
I agree with him completely, and it was James O'Neill gave it 3 out of 5, 75%. I would give it close to an 8.5 or 8.5 out of 10. I really liked it.
I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
It's a very good movie.
It's very good.
It was, I think it might be. It's the best psychological thriller we watched besides Peeping Tom.
Well, we watched a lot of psychological horror.
That was pretty much half of my horror movie. I
Right.
watched psychological. I picked Repulsion, Peeping Tom.
It's like, here's a guy who just wants to
Magic.
have sex and be a woman, and then he goes crazy. That's probably a quarter of your picks, I feel.
I was traumatized as a kid, and it's mixed up with my sexuality, and now I'm fucked up. That's all the movies I picked.
I'm picking all these space adventures, and it's like,
so it's
this guy has through houses on the
wait till he's a truck driver by day, crossdresser by night. It's 1973, and his dad beat him and made him wear a dress. So now, every time he drives the truck, he keeps high heels under his seat. But when the woman finds it, he has a flashback, and he forgets, and his dual personality crosses over, and he goes nuts. But honestly, I can't wait for the crossover movie that we're gonna do. The space psychological thriller character study. This alien is confused with his sexuality because his mean parents beat him up when he was a little toad thing.
On his planet, there is no gender, but he comes down to Earth, and it's like, oh no. Robots got designated roles.
It's like that old shock suspension story from like the Twilight, from the EC comics, where like I remember them talking about that one. Where like the aliens are on a special planet and they have like red robots and blue robots, and they keep them separated. They're like, why? Because it's like, because he's red. And he doesn't deserve it. That's what they say. And then like at the very end, the astronaut's like, you guys aren't ready to come to Earth. And they're like, why not? They're all sad. And then he gets to the ship and he's an African American guy.
Oh.
Unfortunately, that comic was more progressive than we are.
Yeah.
Because we suck. Mm-hmm. But anyways, Fourth Man, excellent movie. Highly recommended. Next week is It Came From Outer Space. And after that will be the movie we make called The Fourth Man Came From Outer Space. The mixture of the two movies.
Yes.
Okay, we're done.
Bye.
Okay, guys, let's hop into the questions. Nick Mua, I listened to a 22 Shots episode covering the Twilight Saga. Not your cup of tea, I gather. Still, it was a Patreon pick, so what are you going to do? So I wanted to know what movie would you never want to rewatch for a Patreon pick, no matter how much money they throw at you. I would just refund them. I really am not going to do the vomit gore movies ever again. I just don't think I could handle that stuff anymore. I really don't want to watch it. Not even because I just have no interest in them anymore. And I wouldn't want to watch like a 2.5 hour Bills Above movie. I wouldn't do it. I'm sorry. So yeah, those are the ones. Stuff like that. Like anything that's purposely made horrible that's very long. Like it's like, here's a 4-hour movie of me like driving a truck, eating nachos, and nothing else happens. I'm not going to watch it. During one of the many, the name of the Rose rewatches, I was thinking how weird it must be for someone who loves books to suddenly be trapped in a maze full of them. Hence my question. If you were trapped in a maze full of DVDs and Blu-rays, would you even want to leave? Let's say there's an HD TV and 4K player present, plus food. Yes, I would, because you need fresh air. I'd like to exercise, interact with other people. Because honestly, I hit a certain point in my time. I honestly have trouble. I can't hit past 4 movies a day usually. I like at 4, I'm like, all right, I need to get up and do stuff. I have ADHD. I could watch movies all day maybe, but not that long. Not for life. What else do we have? Are there any decent werewolves versus vampire movies out there? Probably not. I know there's a scene in Howling 6, not a great movie. The Underworld's movies never interested me. Twilight's awful. Oh, geez. There's a couple episodes of Tales from the Crypt that involve that kind of thing that are decent, especially one in season 2 I really like called The Secret. Spoiler, sorry. Final point, I promise. You probably don't care, but I saw those Twilight movies too. I even read some of the books, which state that the native tribe are skinwalkers and shapeshifters, not true children of the moon. The inverse werewolves. Those Volteri dudes fear the children of the moon and tried to exterminate them. Yes, but in the advertising, they basically refer to them as werewolves, right? Not true children of the moon. So they refer to them in the book, but basically in all the advertising and everything like that, in layman's terms, they call them werewolves. In that universe, they're considered werewolves, right? Like I would never consider in Wolfen those werewolves because they're wolves. These ones, they don't look, they're giant wolves. But I don't know. I'd have to read the source material. But as far as the movies and stuff is concerned, they were always advertised to me and probably stated in there that they're werewolves. So I don't know. Answers. So basically, I asked you what were some of your favorite cut trailers, horror trailers. Peekaboo, Cinema Paradiso. Some of these are like longer comments that they talked about other stuff. I'm just going to read with it. Cinema Paradiso, not seen that, but I guess the backdrop would be fascism and Mussolini, which was also around the same time of World War II. So that man walking outside your house when you and Jeremy did Kronos review probably only wanted to get inside and watch some zombie movies. Therefore, he walked like one. To give a hint. I hope not. Question of the week. It's a tough one. One of my all-time favorites are the 2020 movie Entrance. Click the trailer link here. And I guess the sneak peek of A Quiet Place 2 comes to mind as we see the mom with her kids driving in the small town and the kids panic. The bus comes towards them and then the trailer ends. Another one, thanks for reminding me, member named Shalak Horror, but the trailer for Shakma is so terrifying. Those baboons are seriously messed up. My gosh, that dude... That big box set with mostly Japanese horror movies made my mouth water. Densei Yuta, aka Suicide Song, is an unofficial sequel to Suicide Club that are based on the controversy from the numbers of suicides from girls that claimed that a song AKB84 told them to commit suicide. The producer of the group, Yasushi Akimoto, did also write the script for the Densei Yuta. I might send you a mail about the metaphors and stuff on Jitsatsu Sakura, since it has so much things that many people have missed or not understood if they don't know Japanese. I know Suicide. Oh, he says sorry for the long text. Suicide Club is a very crazy movie. I've watched it a couple times and it's always a little confusing. Joe Carroll, damn, I wanted to say the Frontiers trailer, but the English one is different than ours. In the German version, there's a cut in the middle that says the film contains a particularly large number of scenes with an explicit representation of violence. In order to spare the audience nerves, there is now a short musical break. Then a classic music starts playing and the gore starts coming. That's great. It's a controversial pick, I guess, but the Angela Chapters also has a fucked up trailer. Luther Valentine is just something else when it comes to editing and sound design. He is very good at that. So much so that it makes you want to throw up. On top of the puke, yeah. Dead Flintstone. I really like the editing in the house that Jack built trailer. It's time to Bowie's song Fame and works really effective. That song is used so much in that movie. I love it. Sherlock Horror. Some of the best horror trailers I can think of are those Shakma and about Killer Monkey, or should I say Shakma? Everybody knows that. And the first Paul Naschy's many werewolf movies. It goes by several titles, include Mark of the Werewolf, The Night of Satan, Hell Creatures, Dracula and the Werewolf, and Frankenstein's Bloody Terror. Despite the fact that the movie has nothing to do with Frankenstein or Dracula. Also gotta love the original trailer for Alien, which is as effective today as it was in 79. And I can't forget the great trailer for Return of the Living Dead with that awesome song, Do You Want to Party? It's party time. Other great trailers include Cannibal Holocaust, with that beautiful theme playing against some of the most disturbing images in cinema, and the classic Blair Witch Project trailer that traumatized a generation. Keep up the great work, Mr. P. Thank you. Nick Mua, they don't make trailers like they used to. To these days, they spoil everything. That includes my Get Off the Lawn mini rant. I always like the trailers for David Fincher's movies, especially Seven. This trailer always makes me want to revisit the classic, even if I already saw it a million times. And the Mouth of Madness trailers is so crazy, it's cool. I wanted to see that movie even if I was going to lose my marbles. Let me say this before I forget. There's old trailers that are like 5 minutes long that literally go through the whole movie. So, the real life doco style of Wes Craven's Nightmare trailer puzzled me and made me want to see it at the same time. Sadly, back in a small town like mine, horror movies rarely made it to theaters. At aged 11, I probably wouldn't have been allowed to see it anyway. Still, they broadcast the original again later that year, and so my love for horror began. Lastly, the sole decent current trailer has got to be Candyman 2021. And then we have Chris Truax, Psycho Gorman, John Dies at the End, Alien. Corey Ernst, Alfred Hitchcock touring the hotel house for Psycho. Also got to give a shout out to the great trailer for Frenzy for Alfred Hitchcock. Travis Eddings, My Soul to Take, Art Edinger, 3 on a Meat Hook, Last House on the Left, Blood Spattered Bride / I Dismember Mama. Had to be a double feature then. I think I remember that. Cover Me Blood Red, Martin. And Lee Jones says, I'd put Devil's Wedding Night in that same category. Mark Partridge, Romero's Martin. Second place is Argento Suspiria. La Quinty Lee, Phantasm, I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Hills of Ice 2, and Feast. Joachim Johansson, Texas Chainsaw 2. Ivy Blueny, Shining. It scared me a lot when I was a child, really disturbing. Bex Botwin, Terror Train, Last House on the Left, original and remake. And Silent Night, Deadly Night. Jordan Bibby, Jason X for some reason. Madeline Deering, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, It's Alive, Suspiria. Fred Alderman, anything narrated by Brother Theodore. Tony Araro, love the trailers narrated by Percy Rodriguez. Michael Church, Magic, terrified me as a child. Braralo Romero, Orgy of the Living Dead. Cody Lee Harden, the trailer for Divine Emmanuel, Love Camp, featured on the DVD of Teenage Hitchhikers that I can't find anywhere online, is 100% my favorite trailer of all time. Peter Englund, original trailers of the unreleased trailer of Exorcist, Alien, John Carpenter's The Thing, plus the rare Ice Block teaser, and The Fly. Rob Kopinski, A Nightmare on Elm Street, is a 14-year-old kid living off of Fangoria. The TV spot sent shivers down my spine. As a result, saw it in theater, perhaps the greatest moment of my early years. Awesome. Matthew Head, Leatherface trailer that was a bit like Excalibur. James Bickard, The Twilight People, Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, and The Mad Doctor of Blood Island. Danny Barry, he posts The Lift. The tagline on The Lift is the best. Take the stairs, stairs, for God's sakes, take the stairs. Brad Skies, I Drink Your Blood, I Eat Your Skin. Double feature. John Fisher, you will witness this ugliness. Brad Skies, pretty much anything on Mad Ron's previews from hell. Kevin Keegan, I don't know if John Fisher had a trailer link there or not. I don't have it. I must have missed it. Kevin Keegan, The Legend of Boggy Creek, Just Before Dawn. Basket Case. Mark Humphreys, Alien, builds up tension without giving too much away by showing you flashes of images as the music builds. Ryan Matthew Ziegler, Maximum Overdrive, I'm going to scare the hell out of you. Love Stephen King, all crazy in that. Eric Whiting, Alien Shining. Brett Lawrence, Chud, Night of the Creeps, Warning Sign. Matthew Cantor, The Blob remake, and Popcorn. And then Glenn D. Worthington, the German Army of Darkness trailer is awesome. Then we have some comments. Jerry L. sucks about the Hostel DVD double pack from Mill Creek. I actually have the same set, but I have yet to watch it, still on the DVD, however. I'm curious if everybody's sets like that. Kentuckinator, watched Addicts Expeditions on Tubi last night. Really interesting flick. Thanks for reviewing this one. I wish the lead actor was a bit more charismatic, but he didn't detract from the overall experience. I agree. Incarnate. Larry, happy to see you stocking up on Japanese stuff lately. I've been doing the same. Cruel Restaurant is wild. You'll never look at dumplings the same way again. Ever. Haha. I don't look at dumplings the same way after Untold Story. Eric Townsley watched My Science Project with my adult son. He loved it. I saw it when I was in high school. It was a fun time. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Isamisio, Kronos is a damn good film. Did not enjoy Plague Town. Love the Hostel films. More so first and second. And wish they'd get a better release someday. Yowza, you hit the motherlode with the Asian box. I've seen / heard of Black House, Cruel Restaurant, Curry, Death Bell, and Elevator. The other ones are a complete mystery. Haha. Then we have some old answers, which I basically asked your favorite taglines for horror movies. I'm going to read some of them. So the ones that posted too late. Madeline Deering, the only thing more terrifying than the last 12 minutes of the film are the first 92, Suspiria. How much flesh could a wood chipper chip if a wood chipper could chip flesh? Wood Chipper Massacre. Rebecca Reinhart, Happy Birthday to Me. 6 of the most bizarre murders you will ever see. And Art Edinger, Why is the Cheese Moving? Which is hilarious, from The Nest. I think there's another page here. Oh, we got a couple more. He basically tells the story too about it a little bit. It's been one of the favorite taglines ever since I first saw it in the newspaper ad. Got to see the movie theatrically. People were saying, "Why is the cheese moving?" repeatedly in the theater lobby and laughing hysterically. Hilarious tagline. Daryl Marsh, pretty Sally Mae died a very unnatural death, but the worst has yet to happen to her yet. Deranged, great movie. Christopher Bickle, Pieces. It's exactly what you think it is. Carly Allison. In every town, in every neighborhood, there's one house that adults whisper about, and children cross the street to avoid. People on the stairs. Travis Tiro for the Last House on the Left remake. I really dug theirs. If someone hurt someone you love, how far would you go to hurt them back? Jim Dude, I warned you not to go out tonight. Maniac. Shane Glass, Strays. They say cats have 9 lives. Will one of them be yours? Oh shit, that's great. But question of the week. It's kind of a cop out. I didn't think of one, but I thought of it. You know how me and Jeremy did Hammer Time. We did. I did the VHS Voyage. He did the Blindspot. We're gonna do another Blindspot, but I'm curious what would you guys be interested in us doing? Like a Universal, Godzilla, something like that. Italian movies, 80s films. Let us know what you would be curious to see us run down in the future. So yeah, and I guess we're gonna hop into that update. Okay, let's hop into this update. First up is Embrace of the Vampire, Alyssa Milano. I don't think I've seen this. This looks more like those like 90s sex, late 80s, early 90s sex like things, softcore. I've never seen this one. I know it was remade. Just one that I always wanted to check out. Heavy Metal. Well, I didn't think I had this on Blu-ray. I couldn't believe it. Great movie. Awesome. Tons of voice talent in here. This is just an amazing movie. Check out Heavy Metal if you haven't seen it. Don't need to tell you anything about that one. The 90s version of Island of Dr. Moreau. Awful movie if I remember correctly. But hey, I am very interested in checking out the unrated director's cut, I guess. And I remember the special effects being awesome. And I wanted to rewatch it since I watched that Richard Stanley doc. Then we have Bad Seed, classic movie from the 50s. Awesome. Amazing movie. Best Killer Kid movie, probably, right? Most famous, or most classy, I guess. Then we have The Haunting. Didn't have The Haunting on Blu-ray. I don't think I've ever seen the original Haunting. That should be on a Blindspot coming up. But I believe Richard Johnson's in there. Yeah, that's right. Russ Tamblyn. Oh, wow. Cool. Very cool. And then we have some Scream Factories. Some of these were Target Buy 2 Get 1. Rockula. Yeah, I was not going to pay full price for Rockula. He's a vampire who hasn't scored in 400 years. Tonight's the night he keeps a date with fate. Yeah, Rockula. Looks fun. Looks ridiculous. I was willing to pay the $14 or whatever, $13. So, The Nightwalker, William Castle's. Gonna try to grab any William Castle I can. So, yeah. Not seen this one. Sure, it's pretty good. Then we have I Saw What You Did. Another William Castle one with Joan Crawford. And then we got Crucible of Horror. Love that cover with the castle. Michael Gough on the back there. We have Circus of Horrors. Remember this one had a good cast. I love circus and horror films, so I always love when they go together. Yeah. Anton Driffing's in here. And I thought frickin' Donald Pleasance. Yeah, Donald Pleasance is in there. Oh, and the lady from Brides of Dracula, which is one of the best Hammer Draculas. We have Leech Woman. Ladder Universal, I believe. I don't think I've ever seen Leech Woman. But I sure hope it has a Leech Woman in it. Forever Young, Forever Deadly. Ooh, it's going to be one of those life stories. Don't want to age. And then we have Buried Alive from Kino. There's actually like 2 Buried Alive movies that came out around the same time. One in '89 and one in '90 or something. I'm confused by it myself, but yeah, I don't know if I've seen these or not. This is one of them. And then we have Random Acts of Violence. Finally got a Blu-ray release. I really like this one. This made my top 10. I know that a lot of people don't love it, but I really do like it myself. Interesting, crazy, violent film. Check it out on Shudder. I think it actually does have something to say about violence. So, and then last is a DVD of Piano Man. Beat up, but hey, it's from '96. I think this made Mood's top 10. He mentioned this one being real good. So, yeah, I'm gonna definitely check this one out when I get a chance. It's got those weird little side connectors. I need to get some case replacements. Where's a good place to buy new cases? They used to be everywhere. Now they seem really expensive. But anyways, back to the video. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.